Hey guys, welcome back to Thread and Glue Designs. Today we are going to talk about Queen Esther, Queen Vasheti and Queen Esther. And we're going to talk about Queen Vasheti because Esther wouldn't have had her position if it weren't for Queen Vasheti. And I may be butchering that name, so take it with a grain of salt, but that's how I read it. So, the name Esther actually means a star. However, Esther was not her actual original name. She was a Jew, and her Jewish name was Hadassah. And it meant something very insignificant. But like I said, she was a Jew, and in the Bible, she is portrayed as a woman of piety, faith, courage, patriotism, caution, and resolution. And Esther was actually an orphan. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai. And Mordecai lived at, it is called Shushan, the palace. So that's where Esther lived growing up. And Queen Vasheti was ordered to come before the king and his nobles wearing her crown when he was drunk one night and he wanted everyone to see her beauty. Well, Vascetti denied the request, and because of this, it made the king very, very angry. And he gathered his nobles that he talked to regularly and asked them what he should do with her. So he divorced her and replaced her. They gathered all of the most beautiful women around the realm, and Esther was one of them that was chosen in the harem. And Esther was found with great favor, and she was extremely beautiful. And because of this, she was chosen to take Queen Vasheti's place. Basically just because of her beauty, which is so funny to me. I guess it shouldn't be, but some men are just always the same, aren't they? But the king did not know her race or parentage because she was an orphan. And shortly after she was pronounced the new queen, Hanan had been given full authority and power to kill all of the remaining Jews. And this was a big deal since Esther was a Jew and Mordecai was a Jew. Mordecai, again, was her cousin that raised her. So Esther took great means to keep this from happening. Her and Mordecai planned and plotted the best way to go about it. And because of her great sacrifice and her great, what do you call it? Courage. I'll say courage. They were delivered in the end. And it's still celebrated yearly on the 14th and 15th of February and March in the Jewish custom. But history is silent about her. Haman was greatly raged when Mordecai did not stand and act for him the way that he wanted him to. So he went to his house and planned with his wife and other family members what he should do. So they raised the largest gallows in order for him to gain permission to hang Mordecai. And so he was feeling himself, right? Well, Esther knew of the plot and plan, and she went and requested an audience with the king. And the king granted her the audience. And she didn't ask anything of him right away. Not at all. She found favor in his eyes first, and he vowed to give her whatever she wanted. So she asked for the following day for the king and Haman to have a banquet with her. And so they did that. And the queen requested for her and her people to be delivered from the hand of the person that was an adversary to them. And of course, the king was outraged and wanted to know just who would do such a thing. And she named Haman. And so Haman, being there at the banquet, was beside himself. The king went off and walked in the garden to decide what to do. But when he came back, he saw that Haman had thrown himself on Queen Esther's couch, begging for mercy. And this made him even madder, because he was begging for mercy from the queen and not from him. So he ordered for Haman to be hanged, and he was hung on the gallows that he lifted and intended to hang Mordecai on. And he also had asked Haman what he should do before all of this, before Haman knew exactly what was going on. He had asked him what he should do for the person that he felt like he should have in control of everything. And of course, Haman, thinking that it was him, gave all kinds of glorious things that he thought needed to happen for him. But Haman was outraged when he found out that he actually was going to do all of these things for Mordecai. And so he barely had time to go and tell his wife about all of that before he was summoned to the banquet. So he kind of got his just desserts in the end, wouldn't you say? And it was an amazingly brave thing for Esther to go before the king to beg for their lives. That was not something that would have normally been granted. Women were not esteemed very much, and the king only had eyes for himself, basically. He believed that he was greater than anything and everyone, and so she played up to that, and it paid off in her favor. The book of Esther is a very interesting read. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It teaches a lot about nobility and behavior. If you just watch Esther's behavior as a person in general, as a woman, she is a very deliberate woman, and she's very she thinks about everything and works it all out in her favor. And I find that very interesting because women weren't really portrayed as being very smart or intelligent in those days, in that time, obviously, because look how the king reacted to everything. But interestingly enough, we don't really know who the author of the book of Esther is. It is thought that the book of Esther is actually written by one of the Jews that were delivered during that time by her hand. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was really interesting to know. And there are some that think that Esther was supposed to have actually been a sequel book, that there was supposed to be another book to follow. because of the way it was written in the Hebrew language. It had a W-A-W with it, with the title. But those were eliminated from several books in the Old Testament back in one of the translations. So I found that very, very interesting that the writer, the person that was writing that book, actually was saying, there's more to come. There's more to this story. And isn't that how we should all be? We should all think our story's not over. We have to do something new. We have to get up. We have to move. We have to write our own story. Because Esther knew nothing would happen unless she actually took control of the reins and did what needed to be done. And for us today, a lot of times we are taught, and our children are now taught in school, that they need to be silent and sit and wait for instruction or directions. That was something my daughter was talking to me about the other day, and that's wrong. It's wrong to let our children be taught that. You should not have to sit and wait for instruction on every aspect of your life. They're not taught anymore how to take control of the reins, how to work things out for what they're looking for, what they're needing. And I think that's something that we really need to consider having back with our children. If they're not being taught it at school, because at school they are taught to wait for instruction in everything, then we as parents at home should be teaching them how to live a life taking full control. I think that's one of the greatest lessons that we should learn from the book of Esther, is about self-reliance and control. And it's a very good read. If you haven't read that, you really should. You're missing out greatly. That is the end of the discussion on Queen Esther and Vasheti, or Queen Vasheti. And that brings us to our 4th week, which will happen next week on the Prominent Women series of the Bible. And if you guys have more to add about Esther's story, you know more, you've read more, I by all means never know everything. That is the clearest fact I've ever learned. So add it in the comments. Let's help each other out to learn. And in the meantime, I will be preparing for lesson number 4 on Elizabeth and Mary, and 2 very prominent women of the Bible. So this is Thanksgiving week, and I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's listening. And I hope that you have a ton to be thankful for. I know I sure do. We are having some crazy times, and we are losing people left and right. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to be thankful for still. Because I guarantee you, if they knew God, then they're thankful as it is. They're rejoicing if they're not here. So we should do the same, and rejoicing for them and looking forward to Christ's return for us. So I'll leave you with that, and happy Thanksgiving. If you like this, please give a like, maybe do some commenting. Let us know what you know about Esther and Vasheti, and tell me what you're looking forward to next. And I will bid you adieu and see you in the next one. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Bye.